you know, you have to grab a book or two off of your shelf, you know, never to see your library again. But this is like...
You can't just buy everything.
Yeah. I know, I'm really going to have to revamp this question. Because every time I ask it, someone's like, I have an issue with this. Like, I would save my cat instead. Or, you know, like, of course, there are other things that, you know, that you would take with you or that, you know, feel necessary to your person. But I guess I'm just curious, like, one or two books that you feel just like most connected to, that sentimentally or intellectually or sort of just emotionally, that you'd want to have them with you, you know, if that's all you had.
Yeah. It's such a hard question. I have a lot of sentimental attachment to what are left of my old children's books, like that I mentioned before, Little Bear, Frederick. And I also, my mind goes back a lot to a book a Russian book by Turgenev called Asya. It's a novella that I read in maybe 10th grade when I was studying Russian. So we had this edition where it was in Russian and then the words, the vocabulary was translated in English, like sort of a dictionary of that page on the left side and the Russian on the right side for very beginning Russian students. And it's this, I should reread it because anything that you haven't read since you were 15, you're bound to have different feelings about. But it was so romantic and beautiful, I thought, about these Russian expatriates in Germany on the Rhine and this forbidden love and learning it in Russian and getting a sense of the music of a different language and how important the music of any language is to a writer, whatever language you're writing in, the musicality of it. That's where I really got a sense from studying a foreign language of how important that could be. And of course the book is all marked with my little notes and my little translations from 10th grade, and I think maybe I would take Asya. And I'm tempted to say War and Peace too, because it's such a great book, and I also have a personal connection to it now, but I probably shouldn't. This has to do with how my husband proposed to me. I don't know if you want to hear it. You probably know the story.
Only if you feel like sharing it.
Well, maybe I will. You could cut it if it's too sappy. But there's a scene, Natasha, of course, is my favorite character. And I've also been wondered why I'm named Natalie. Like, I'm named Natalie after my mother, who was also named after her mother. We were all Natalies. And then why was my grandmother named Natalie? My mother says, her mother said she named her after a character in a book. But we don't know what book. So I just hope it was War and Peace. And Natasha's my favorite character in War and Peace. And there's a scene where she's become fallen and she's talking to Pierre, who's unhappily married, and she thinks her whole life is lost because she's kind of committed social sin. And he says, if I were the best man and if I were free, I would get on my knees and ask for your hand because you're not all is lost. You're so wonderful. And so Eric, my husband, when he asked me to marry him, he doesn't speak Russian, but he tried to learn those words, what Pierre says, in Russian to propose to me. He actually Skyped with a woman who lives in Georgia, the former Soviet Georgia, to practice the words. And he didn't really say them right, but I knew what he was getting at. And so now that scene has this whole new meaning for me because I really get it, even though society isn't as rigid as it was then, and I don't really feel like I was totally lost. But in some ways I have felt that, you know?
I think that brings up this idea that we read to, I'm not going to get it right, but I don't know if you think about this, but like, reading to discover something, like, when you're reading a book and you think, oh my God, this is the thing that I felt for so long and I've never seen it expressed this way. Like, this is completely the only way that one could express this thing, which I'm feeling, and I could never do that, and it's here in this book.
Yes, I love those moments.
And those moments seem, from both sides, from being a reader and a writer, like the thing, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what that reminds me of, like this idea that you get to, but like in reverse, that you get to live the thing. That's like the book has really sort of come alive in that way.
Yeah, where the book adds an element to something that is happening in your life, or gives you another way of looking at it, or gives it a little extra poetry or something. It makes you feel connected to human history. Not to be too grandiose about it.